Tell you what, I'll get away from quoting the headlines. We're going to bring in two guests who have knowledge of the budget battle and also what is going on with Obamacare. More funny business from the White House. Joining us now to go in depth, Betsy McCaughey, a public health policy expert, former lieutenant governor of the state of New York, and Kirsten Kurkowski, the deputy communications director and national press secretary for the Republican National Committee. Ladies, let's first listen to what House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy had to say about this budget. Or actually, we'll quote him now. And I'll quote the profound words of Kevin McCarthy. At a time when Americans are still struggling to get by, this budget would add on even more costs and taxes. Betsy, in terms of taxes, what is going on with Obamacare?
I am so glad you asked me, because this budget skewers the middle class and it holds up a big sign to seniors, drop dead. Here's the biggest part of this budget for ordinary people like us. If you had a home, maybe you bought it for $80,000 30 years ago, a 3-bedroom colonial, and of course it's worth several times that now. The president says, okay, when you die, you can't leave it to your kids because you're going to have to pay a tax, capital gains tax, on all the appreciation of that house since the day you bought it, and then they're going to slap an estate tax on the appreciated value. So they're going to tax 60% of the value of this home that you've lived in your whole life and are counting on giving to your kids.
Kirsten, are we going to see budget back?
Distribution.
Sorry to interrupt you. Kirsten, we want to get your take. Are we going to see budget backlash when voters cast their ballots in 2016?
I do. I think I couldn't agree more with what she was just saying. I think that in terms of the Democrat Party going out there and saying that they're for the middle class, I think this is everything but that. And this is now the second proposal in the matter of a couple of weeks since the 529 college savings debacle for the administration that it's been pretty clear that the Democratic Party is not for the middle class. And I think it puts Hillary Clinton in a huge box as we look toward 2016. It's going to be really harmful for their party.
2 minutes remain in this segment.
This is robbing grandma to spread the wealth.
Well, and the other point is, we understand, Betsy, with about 1:30 remaining, the president is playing fast and loose with tax exemptions for this coming year in terms of Obamacare. Can you outline what's going on there?
And by the way, if you are planning on going away for President's Weekend and taking your kids with you, forget about it. You're going to have to spend that weekend reading the 12 pages of instructions and then filling out the 72 boxes on Form 8962 so that you don't get slapped with a fine for not having Obamacare.
Kirsten, is there anything that appeals to you at all about this budget proposal?
No, not at all, to be honest with you. I think that this is just more taxing and spending by the Dem Party. I think that we've seen that time and time again from this administration. But back to what she was saying on Obamacare, the president is literally spending his day today continuing to sell Obamacare, reading letters of people who he claims that Obamacare is helping. I think that we are now in 2015. The Democratic Party lost the midterms because of this issue, and they continue to have to try and sell this policy on the American people. And I don't think it clearly isn't working.
We got 30 seconds left in the segment, Betsy. Again, you're talking about how much work on your tax return for this year?
Oh, yes. Buckets of paperwork just to stay on the right side of the law. And 9 to 10 million people are going to lose their on-the-job coverage because of Obamacare, according to the Congressional Budget Office report that came out last week. Isn't the first principle of medicine is do no harm?
Well, this is what happens when politicians play doctor, so to speak. When we come back, Betsy McCaughey, Kirsten Kurkowski, Miranda Kahn, and yours truly to talk taxes, Obamacare, and vaccines.
Oh, my.
That's all ahead here on America's Forum. With Miranda Kahn, J.D. Hayworth back with you on America's Forum. Suffice to say, Miranda, the administration is scrambling ahead of tax season.
Yeah, supporters of Obamacare are very nervous that uninsured consumers will become angry when they learn the tax penalties they must pay for not carrying insurance are much larger than what they originally were told.
Not to mention the paperwork we just heard about before the break.
Yeah.
Although they've been granted some exemptions, the penalties could very well ignite a political firestorm that could start when you fill out your tax returns. Let's continue the conversation. Betsy McCoy was warning us about it before the break. She's Skyping in from New York and from Washington and Republican National Committee headquarters. We've got Kirsten Kurkowski, the Deputy Communications Director, National Press Secretary for the RNC. Now, Kirsten, Betsy was warning us what's coming for tax preparers here prior to April 15th. What is going to be the impact of this politically?
You know what? I don't think we know yet, but I can tell you it's probably not going to be good for the Democrat Party. And you know what? You start thinking about the timeline of when Hillary Clinton said she was going to push back her launch back to June, July, springtime, or past springtime. And you do have to wonder if this is something where she wants to remain underground and not have to deal with tax time and Obamacare. So I do think the timeline is very interesting. This is something she obviously is not going to want to have to deal with politically.
Betsy, can you kind of explain this whole penalty? Because a lot of people thought it was going to be, $95 for not signing up?
Those were the weasel words the administration used to try to convince everybody this was nothing. The penalty is $95 or 1% of your adjusted gross income, which is whichever is higher. Well, $95 is only higher if you only earn $9,500 a year. There are a few people in that category, but most people earn more, and they're going to get clobbered with 1% of their adjusted gross income penalty this year, 2% next year, 2.5% the year after. This continues to go up. So these are not small penalties. You could be paying several $1,000s a year in penalties.
Yeah, you're right. TurboTax is saying 2014, they're estimating over $300. Kirsten, how do you think people are going to react when they find this out?
Well, I'm shaking my head. My head is swimming with all of these numbers, and I think that she needs to go out there and tell everybody in America as they get started on their taxes just what she just said, because that's ridiculous. This is not something the government should be imposing on people. This is not what people wanted. We saw that in the midterms. We're going to continue to see the political fallout as we head into 2016. And I think it can't be good. We don't know exactly what's going to be happening, but every time this news kind of trickles out, when national reporters start paying attention to this and telling people the truth, it just continues to snowball for the White House.
Well, let's talk about another aspect of public health and a debate that is showing some disagreement and fault lines within the Republican Party. Betsy, that's the vaccination debate. Where do you come down on this? It seems that Governor Christie and Senator Paul are on one side. Dr. Ben Carson is on the other, saying public health needs to dominate. Where does parental choice give way to public health in your mind, Betsy?
Well, let me make clear, first of all, that this is not a federal issue. Read the Constitution. There is nothing in it about the federal government imposing vaccines or having anything to do with people's health. That's a state issue. So Governor Christie, he's on his turf and he's made his views known. But Ben Carson and Rand Paul, they really have nothing to do with this because the President of the United States should have nothing to do with vaccines. That's number one. Number two, although at the moment the science says vaccines are safe, and I believe they are safe, my children and grandchildren all got their MMR vaccines, the fact is that science is constantly changing. It is never settled. I heard a few people say on television last night, well, the science is settled on vaccines. By definition, science is never settled. So although I recommend getting the vaccine, I don't believe the government should have the power to compel parents to inject their children with anything. On the other side, public education may be able to erect barriers to children who pose a danger in an era of epidemics if they're not vaccinated. That's where I come down.
Kirsten, your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to have to be very careful. And I think this kind of dovetails into what she was just saying. As a national party, as a Republican Party, I'm not going to weigh in on this. This is not something that I, sitting in Washington D.C. at the Republican National Committee, I'm going to weigh in on. I don't have the facts. I don't have the research, and I don't have the authority to make those decisions. So do I think that this is a topic of conversation that everyone should be having right now? I think that it belongs in the public discourse right now. But am I going to take a position as a political party? No, I think that's irresponsible.
Well, fair enough.
Bravo.
When people come down on all sides of the issue, there's a lot to consider. And next hour, we're going to talk about it with Dr. Ben Carson, who'll be here on the anchor desk. For now, Betsy McCoy, Kirsten Kurkowski, we thank you very much for your time.